Howdy folks, Doc here with Last Best Tool, and Milwaukee Tool has a couple of new pliers out, and this is one of them. This is the 8-inch slip joint plier, and the part number on this is the 48226240. And Milwaukee says that it is engineered by Milwaukee Tool, doesn't say where, but then it says it's manufactured in South Korea with finishing work in China, and then put on a boat and shipped to America. And you can get it at Home Depot for about $23. That seems to be the retail about this for this thing. It's got dipped handles. It's got kind of a matte black oxide finish. You can see the construction of it, and kind of a unique take on the classic slip joint. Now, when I first saw this, I thought it was going to be a little bit more like the Knipex Twin Grip, or the Harbor Freight Twin Grip if you prefer, but in reality it seems a little bit closer to the Snap-on triple slip joint, or the Icon triple slip joint if you prefer. But what it is a 3-position slip joint that does not have any other real fancy features. A lot of these use kind of a bolt or a rivet. The twin grips with either flavor have a spring-loaded push button. This one doesn't. In fact, this is a really easy, almost classically old design with basically like this T-shaped pin in here. It just slides back and forth. It's actually quite good. I don't know if you could catch it, in the wrong place and apply some force and undo that, but it seems like really solid metal. I mean, I'm squeezing that and you're getting very little play. Up on the front end, well, one of the things that they say is it has kind of a narrow profile for getting into smaller areas. Well, this is quite a bit narrower, as you can see, so line that up. So I don't know if it's quite that, and in fact, if you go to something like this, and nobody ever accused these Snap-ons of being narrow, but when I overlay them, you can see that the Milwaukee is not that much thinner in either direction. So I don't know if that's a big selling point. It also says it has multi-function grip zones, and that it does. It's got some really thick, heavier kind of gripping teeth, which I like, and that's one of the benefits, I think, of Snap-ons. Here are the icons here. But it also has this kind of finer set with what appears to be a screw-grabbing front end, which is pretty common on a lot of these things. Now, that seems to be the way to go, and it almost matches up perfectly to this Icon here, or this Knipex Twin Grip. Does it work? Well, I played around with it, and it works about as good as those do. There's some pretty good grip there. If I try to go with almost a flush little screw, I can't grab a flush there, and I can, in fact, get this thing turning if I really, whoops, I guess that's in the shadow, sorry, work at it. I can get this thing going. As far as grabbing stuff, the triple slip joint, I think, is a great idea because there's plenty of room for a triple slip joint. And by the way, that middle position, some people complain about these because the jaws no longer line up. And I see that as a really common complaint with the Snap-ons. It's like, what? Something's messed up. This is narc. Well, it can't line up given that that's not a straight line. Okay? What you see here is this middle position has moved this right-hand jaw up higher compared to where it was here. But this is where you'd want them lining up, in the smallest position, not in this middle position. But if you back them up just a little ways, you can't tell. In fact, if they're parallel, which is how they're designed, for grabbing things essentially parallel, they line up quite well. So that is not a problem with that. That's just a function of geometry. But anyway, going back to these, same thing happens. You can see that they don't line up there, but that's not what they're for. If you back them off to a useful distance, then they're perfectly fine. And then it does have a fairly large gripping width there that's reminiscent of the Snap-ons. That's what we liked about these. Even a smaller plier can have a fairly manageable, one-handed grip that's, say, over an inch in cross-section there. So I'm not sure why Milwaukee's going after a plier, maybe just filling out their plier range, but I wish that they had been made in the United States. I don't think this is an insurmountable design that you require 3 different countries, you know, maybe designed in America. It doesn't say that. Most Milwaukees say that, you know, and then manufactured in South Korea and then finished in China. You know, Icon, they seem to be able to pull it off in Taiwan. Not even sure that's a country. I think it is, but, and then Snap-on, of course, in the U.S. So this is what Milwaukee's got. If you go to some larger sizes of things, you can see there's the hand span in the smallest position. If I go to the largest position, well, it doesn't even fit. That's too big, so that's a good thing. Middle position seems to fit quite nicely. There is, on the smallest position, what looks like might be a cutter there, but the way it slides it up, I don't know if that's going to be successful. I guess I could try it here. Grab a piece of wire and see if I can snap that. I don't know. Nope. There's not enough of a grab. Would have to go right in there, and now it just slides right out. Whereas if you look at the Knipex, it doesn't even bother. But Snap-on, they take that pretty serious. They really go after, you know, a nice clean cut there. And then check the Icon, same as the Snap-on as you'd expect. As far as some of the smaller grabbing, you know, this does work really well on the far end. As you can see there, that's kind of nice, since we've kind of gotten used to that with a lot of pliers. Even the new Knipex Slim Cobras have kind of the screw grabbing up front, but that just really is a nice way to grab fasteners as long as it's designed for it. And then grabbing them with these big teeth here works great. So there it is, Milwaukee's finally entrance into the slip joint plier arena. They've got so many other pliers that now I guess maybe they needed to come out with something like this. And they've got some other stuff on the horizon that I'll be covering. But if you're interested in a slip joint and maybe you want something that looks different than a classic slip joint, well, Milwaukee to the rescue, right? If there's something else that this plier does that I don't know about, please tell me in the comments. But otherwise, it just seems like a slight jaw change compared to a classic slip joint. It's not as crazy innovative as this, you know, which really does get into smaller areas, and then it's not made in the US. So not as exciting, but it does have a really flat, kind of dark blacksmith-like oxide finish. Let me know your thoughts. And with that, Doc out.